go ahead and bow our heads and start in prayer. Dear Father, thank you so much for bringing us all here today. I pray for everybody in this room as they start school and they're having a wonderful start. I pray just, be with us here today. Help me to share the words that you want me to share about the beginning of this charity and turning bad into good. Thank you so much, Father, and we love you very much. In your name, amen.
Amen.
So it's really a pleasure to be here with you guys today. It's a fun, intimate crowd, and it's really special. This is such a wonderful place, for me. I grew up here. My mom is Helida. I think what I'm talking about, the gist of this is how I created this charity, this fashion-oriented cancer charity called Fabulous in Fighting, which is to get the fashion industry to donate clothes to cancer patients to help improve their self-image as they go through treatment. How it began was going all the way back. I grew up in a very loving, wonderful family, with my wonderful mom, my wonderful dad, who were very supportive. And I had one big brother who I always looked up to, Zach, who lives in D.C. now. But there was this one older brother who I never got the chance to know, who was kind of always a shadow child for me. He had passed away when I was 1 and he was 7. The only things I knew about my brother Joshua were that he had picked my name, as a great baseball player for a team called the Yankees, a little league team, and that he had passed away from cancer at the age of 7. He got it within a year and died that same year. And so I grew up, I think, in a lot of ways, I think I matured very young. Still immature in a lot of ways, but very mature in some, just because I grew up around, the idea of what death was. I remember from the age of 3, in some way. And this thing of cancer was kind of always very present in my family. And so flash forward, to 2013, the summer, my mom, Helida, had been diagnosed just unbelievably a few months after my dad had passed. And it was just a hellacious year. I was so angry, and I think I told my mom, I'm not afraid to admit, I just couldn't go to church for a while. I was really upset. And I just was very scared for my mom, in a lot of ways. And so I took leave from work. I was working at the Screen Actors Guild at this time up in New York. And I came home to help my mom start treatment. And on the way to the American Cancer Society to pick out a free wig for her, I gained a newfound appreciation for the hair care and cosmetic industries when I learned that they were donating products to cancer patients. And I grew very curious as to whether the fashion industry was doing the same, since I'd seen there was such a need, just given the weight fluctuations that can occur with treatment. And so after coming back to New York and doing a lot of research and finding out that nothing like it was yet in existence, I just felt really called to start this organization. And I had done some producing, and so I had this link to this production company called Grassroots Films, who actually want to bring down here, I hope. They do a lot of humanitarian documentaries, which can be seen on Netflix. They're awesome. And they're very faith-based. But their lawyer I had met, Jason Miller, from this wonderful law firm up there called Blank Rome. And so I just felt very called to go ahead and set up a meeting with him and tell him about this idea after creating like a business plan, just kind of really thinking creatively about what I would do with this organization. So I took it to him, and he just, along with 7 other lawyers, they came on board pro bono, working for free for us to help start this organization. And so after getting the legal team, I had co-founders that I brought on, who are 2 wonderful friends of mine, both former actors actually. One is a social worker now, and one working in cancer research. And we just came together, and God really opened the doors just very quickly for it. My friend, she was friends with the owners of Dolce Vita, who are now my biggest collaborators with this. They've just been acquired by Steve Madden, so we're probably going to be working with them too. And so, you know, I sat down with Dolce Vita, and they came on board and said, we'll do whatever you want, you know, just to help start this. And from there, you know, it's just been a big process of, you know, having our first clothing distribution event, which we did for, we started very small, 7 women of all different ages, and another of our sponsors, Candela, came on board to donate clothing, and just to, you know, see how the patients are so, to see just what a wonderful gift it is for them, just to have a moment of joy, you know, and just the simple gift of giving an outfit, you know, just how meaningful it was for them. Just it proved to me what a wonderful organization this would be and how much of an impact it would have. In another moment, you know, I shared this story at the launch event for the charity that we just had up there in New York. Another moment where I knew that I had to start this organization pertains to the story that involves the wonderful Bergs. So I had, it involves a beautiful girl named Sarah Knapp Kidd, who looks like Jessica Chastain, another fellow redhead. And she had, this was early, probably like January, this past January. And she had been battling cancer, and I remember I was having dinner with Ruth, and I remember you mentioning that, you know, Sarah had heard about this charity, and, you know, how she would like an outfit, and you know, I was kind of concerned because we weren't official yet, and I didn't have, you know, we weren't 501c3 yet, and I was like, we don't have clothing donations as of yet. But I remember, you know, I was about to go visit her about a few weeks later, and talking to my mom about it, just saying, you know, I want to get her an outfit, but we're not established yet. And my mom just was basically like, just, it doesn't matter, just, you know, use your Ann Taylor card and go get something and just say it's your first donation. And so I went to Ann Taylor, and I got a beautiful, it was a pink flowy blouse, like a silky blouse. And I remember getting to come see Sarah on a Sunday, and just give this to her, and, you know, she just lit up with the joy of a child when I had the opportunity to give this to her. And to me, it was just such to tell her, you know, and to look her in the eye, and just say, you know, I'm starting this partially in your honor, you know, this is, you know, for you, was just, I think, just a sign from God for me that I knew that this was something that was going to be in creation for a long time, and God would open doors for it. And she sadly passed away, I think, a few days later, but I was so grateful, you know, even though she didn't get to wear it, that I was able to give her that. And but since then, you know, it's this charity is, I think just looking at my past and how angry I was, you know, all of 2013 with the loss of my dad and my mom being sick, and just so angry up in New York, which is not a good place to be angry, because it's like, it's so stressful if y'all have ever been up there. A wonderful place, but very stressful. I think, you know, now looking back, as I've formed this company, along with my other full-time work in media, I think it's just been a reminder that, you know, you never know what God is going to do with, you know, in the midst of bad. You just have to just take a breath and try and see it from the big picture, and know that, you know, the bad will eventually stop. I think I just had to, you know, just kind of get through it and just give over and surrender. I think that was my word of 2013 for me, was just, you know, sometimes walking to work so frustrated, just saying surrender, you know, and just do whatever you're going to do with me, God. And so out of that bad came this organization, and that's where I am. So I'd love to take questions, or wish I had more to say.
Do you have offices for the charity?
We don't yet. We're pretty much running out of Dolce Vita, which their offices, it's really cool. It's the Puck building. It's in Soho. So it's a beautiful, very old building. And we just got, I just negotiated while here, actually, storage space and transportation with a new company that's about to go national called MakeSpace. They're really cool. They bring green recyclable bins, and then they take away all your stuff. So it's really environmentally friendly, and but it's a really cool company.
Well, do you have like contracts, or not contracts, but more like contacts do you work with specific hospitals in New York, or do you do more in New York, or are you kind of nationwide yet?
It's funny, we're already getting inquiries to have clothing stores. So how the charity works, I'm so sorry I didn't mention that, is we have temporary pop-up stores in hospitals. We want to do it twice a year where patients can come and select 2 to 3 items that make them feel and look beautiful. And so Beth Israel up in New York is the main one we're going to be working with. We've met with Memorial Sloan Kettering, but we want to do our second distribution event in February around Valentine's Day. So that's kind of what I'm working with my fashion sponsors and all that kind of stuff to get going. But we have had inquiries from Southern California and New Jersey, and the real vision was to someday turn it into an online platform, kind of like Guild Group, but not flash sales, but just kind of that model where any verified patient could log on and we could ship it to them directly. And obviously there's going to be we're going to have to come with a lot of strategy to figure out what's the verification process, for patients. And, but yeah, so those are the main hospitals. Beth Israel for now is going to be the one that we're going to start with and go from there. So, and we want to start with women first, and then probably branch to children and then men. So just kind of taking it small steps.
Can you explain how chemotherapy and radiation and whatever medication makes people's weight fluctuate?
Yeah, I mean, I saw with my mom her lose weight so rapidly, but I know also it can cause a big extreme of making you gain weight, and so thus creating another out-of-pocket cost. Because I was just watching something on, I think it was 60 Minutes, just talking about how cancer can just make you. So many people have gone bankrupt, from, I mean, the cost of co-pays, it was, I remember my mom, it was an issue. So, to have to, get a new outfit, is just another additional thing to worry about. So I felt, at first I thought this charity would really be about cutting down out-of-pocket costs, but then it really became more about empowering self-image and helping with confidence. But it is also about definitely helping cut down out-of-pocket costs. But yeah, it's, I just think it's awful, what treatment can do to you. And just, I remember my mom, I'm sure she won't mind me telling this, with her treatment, she would just say it made her feel like she was a monster, just with the loss of hair, the loss of eyebrows, if you have breast cancer, the loss of, mastectomy, and I just think it can be very stripping of for women, femininity, and obviously for men, it can really affect as well. So yeah.
What about, you mentioned that 2013 was kind of your angry period.
The lost year, I think.
Yeah. Was there like a turning point where you turned back to God? You mentioned the surrender.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, I think the worst moment was when my dad had actually passed. He had had congestive heart failure for 10 years, since I was at University of Michigan, which is where I went to undergrad. I think that was a moment when he passed. I remember I couldn't even get out of the car it was so surreal. Like when we drove up to the actual burial, I just couldn't even, I collapsed. It was an awful moment. I think for me, that was the beginning of just a very hard time. Probably coming back to New York after coming home to help my mom. I think in August, like late August, just really sitting down. I live in Brooklyn, and just sitting down at a Starbucks actually on a Saturday morning, and just being so inspired to put together this pitch deck for the charity, and being very creative. And I think that was kind of a very, now looking back, a moment where I was just like, I'm going to survive, and I'm going to really do something with all of this somehow. So I find that looking back was probably my moment of surrender in a way, and just kind of giving over and feeling very just inspired, to put this into action. So.
Well, I'm just going to make a comment on how important this is, because when you're in chemotherapy, not only do you have the weight loss, the hair loss, everything, and that's real unimaginable as a woman to think about. but you never know what's happening the next day.
Yeah.
But you never really know. Some of the cancers themselves cause conditions that make your body weird.
Yeah.
You know, our daughter-in-law Sarah, she had parasiticus, which is this big swelling of her stomach when the dripping of the cancer cells just dripped into there, and that's why she couldn't fit into any of her clothes, and she was not happy about that, of course. And even though she had stopped chemotherapy because it wasn't working, when she found out that she was going to be receiving a new lousy outfit, it just brightened her up so incredibly well, just amazingly. And then I wasn't there when you brought it, but
it was so special. It was a moment I'll never, I think, forget ever.
It was about 48 hours before she died, and so she had that. That was one of her last lucid moments.
And I just share something else about the loss too.
Yeah.
Sorry, just our family was so connected with Bethany during all this. But so Sarah didn't get to wear the gloss, but she passed away just so quickly. Just when she kind of slipped into her last state of just not being able to do anything, she really passed quickly. And so her sister, her family, her immediate family was all there, and her sister didn't have anything to wear because they were going to do the funeral right away. And so her sister actually wore it to the little thing that
So she got the joy, and her sister got the
the
extended joy.
Yes, yeah, for sure. Trying to get I feel like Ann Taylor is so special to this story, so I'm trying to get to Ann Taylor Inc. to
really
get them on board. Yeah, they're the first donation. But yeah, and I know Sarah will definitely be a huge part of this forever. It's definitely in her honor. But yeah, next steps are places like Target are interested, and Macy's, and it's growing pretty fast, which is pretty tricky, like on top of another job. But
What's the name of the charity again?
Fabulous and Fighting. Patrick accidentally called it Fighting and Fabulous, but it happens a lot. Just remind people it's like alphabetical, F-A and F-I. So, but yeah, I think, I hope that's just a reminder for all of you. I know adolescence can be hard, sometimes, and just I think a reminder just to surrender and just know that it will be okay, and that God is in control. And, do y'all have any questions about starting a business? MBA talk.
How can someone be involved without being like Ann Taylor, like the company? Could you be involved by yourself?
Sure.
Like as a person?
Yeah. We definitely need volunteers. I think it will definitely become national. As I work with my team, I think for the first few years it's going to be in New York area, just as we kind of figure out logistics and all of that sort of thing. But yeah, definitely volunteering. We have donations online. We're raising operational funds right now. So yeah.
Okay.
For the temporary stores, we'll definitely need help distributing clothing.
How are you raising operational funds, and how can you donate?
Sure. Thank you for asking. We have a website, www.fabulousandfighting.org, and that's pretty much the only way we're raising funds as of now. We just had a big fundraiser, a launch party up there at Dolce Vita's headquarters at the Puck Building in Soho. It was awesome. It was more people than I thought attended, so for our first fundraiser it was wonderful, and tons of people from media and fashion attended, and hospitals, and some good press coverage, so it's coming along, just kind of organically. But yeah, through online donations mainly, as of now, PayPal.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I know there are organizations that accept, gently used outfits for women that are looking for a job.
Yeah, Dress for Success.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering if with your Broadway connections that you have, are you ever thinking about maybe asking for clothing donations from stars or
that's a good idea.
other?
Do you mean for patients to actually wear, or just to auction off? Or?
No, well, both. It could be.
Yeah, I think for now, I've discussed with my legal team about the idea of using gently used clothing, and I think for now we're just taking just new. I think eventually that could work down the line. We were just concerned about the spread of germs and sensitivity with treatment, but that's a great idea for sure. We'll definitely. I think we have somebody on our advisory board who is very big in the Broadway community, so I'm sure we will definitely do like a concert or something, get some people together like at the public theater, and probably do some sort of benefit, I would imagine, a small concert.
Now, I know you mentioned the spread of germs. Is there anything that you have to do to the new clothes to sanitize them, or they don't come from stores, right? They come straight off the.
Yeah, we're not doing sample sale clothing as of now. It's strictly purely new clothing, so wrapped and everything. So yeah.
I might have missed it, Bethany.
Mm-hmm,
What
sure.
was, after you had this idea, this vision of what you're called to do,
Mm-hmm.
what was the first thing that you did after that?
I think it was the moment where I talked about surrender. I think when now looking back, I didn't realize it at the time, but going to Starbucks on that Saturday morning in Brooklyn and putting together a pitch deck and just really, I think I sat there for like 4 hours. And also I needed something to do with all that, what I was feeling with my mom going through it. So it was almost like starting it. It felt like my way of like fighting it along with my mom in a sense, the cancer. So I remember just sitting there that whole morning and just putting together this business plan. And so yeah, after that, getting 2 co-founders, Susan and Eric, dear friends of mine, and going to my legal team, getting a legal team, which was a really big gift because they've saved us thousands of dollars.
So these are people that you already knew that you just kind of pulled in?
Yeah, for the legal team. That happened through Grassroots Films, who I produced a documentary for, helped them with, and who I definitely want to, as I was mentioning, I want to get them down here because they're very faith-based, do a lot of humanitarian documentaries, and do a lot of public speaking around the country. So their lawyer I had known, and so I just set up a meeting with him, and he loved the idea, and he built a team of 7 young lawyers, and it just kind of got put into action, because I wanted to make sure I didn't do anything. I didn't want to miss any step in terms of creating a business and creating a charity. So it just kind of, now looking back, it just came together very easily. We got processed as a 501c3 miraculously within a month, which I know is very rare. And I still think somebody pulled a string somewhere. Yeah, like maybe my lawyer, somebody on the advisory boards in the government, so maybe he did it.
This is the first one that you've done, right? Charity like this.
Huh?
This is the first charity that you've had.
Yeah. It's kind of, I mentioned in an interview, it was really like a hands-on MBA, which I've thought about doing, but it's kind of been, it's kind of felt like I'm learning as I go, and have great advisors who have MBAs. So I kind of just go to them, but yeah, I think it, just shows anything can happen. And if you have an idea, I think you can put anything into action, So.
How do you get meetings with all the fashion houses?
Through that, I think Dolce Vita kind of really put it into action for us, really opened a door. I'll never forget my first meeting with them. I was coming from work, and I was in a suit, just ready to make this presentation. And I walked into this beautiful, their showroom is just awesome. It's like this beautiful loft. And, I was kind of nervous. I was like just ready with my little presentation, pitch deck. And I walked in, and they had like champagne on the bar. They have a bar in their showroom. And it was like a team of like 7, 8 of their staff members. And they just were like, have some champagne, we want to be partners. So I didn't even have to pitch it. They were like, we've been looking for a charity. We love this idea. We wish we would have thought of it. We want to do whatever we can. So that really put things into action. And just through contacts, my friend Susan knew somebody that was the former creative director of Jack Spade. He loved the idea, so he came on the advisory board and kind of has been helping make some connections as well. So, and then I had a friend from musical theater school back at UM, Michigan, who now works at Tom Brown in fashion. So just kind of really thinking creatively, like who do I know, who's a friend of a friend, just kind of reaching out, and not being afraid of the answer no. And that's something else I've learned, I think, which is a good lesson, just to not be shy. If you want something, just ask for it, because it just, the worst thing that people can say is no, or not answer, and that's no big deal. So somebody will say yes.
It seems like the importance in the situation, the gravity of the cancer, and your own personal experience with it has probably made you fearless.
I wouldn't say, do you mean of the disease, or?
No, I mean in starting this charity and like
Yeah.
not being afraid.
Yeah, it was.
To hear the word no. And
Yeah, I just felt it was something. Another moment that was very instrumental was I remember I was getting my hair cut up there in New York, and I kind of had the seeds of this idea, and I was like, oh, somebody in fashion should start this, And I remember my hairstylist was like, yeah, there's somebody from Ralph Lauren here. You should go talk to her. And so I did, and kind of gave her this idea, and she was like, yeah, call me. And I remember calling her, and she never responded, and I was like, that was just a reminder. I was like, oh, I'm going to start it. I was like, fine, I don't need Ralph Lauren,
right.
or at least right now. I don't know, I guess fearless is a good word because I had so much, that feeling of what's wrong with no. This should be in existence, and I will find some way to put it into existence, and somehow. So a lot of determination on a crazy schedule, up in New York, but it just felt like it should be. So.
How do you incorporate religion and God into your charity?
I think through action. I haven't really, on the website, put anything about faith, but I kind of feel like the mission kind of speaks it in itself, just through our mission statement. But I'm sure eventually down the line, I will somehow probably put it up there. But for now, I just felt like the mission was enough. The work to bring this clothing to cancer patients, and getting to see, this first distribution event, getting to see the volunteers and how they interacted with the patients and how the patients connected with each other. It just felt like a very spiritual experience in itself that didn't need an explanation, like point blank, having a faith.
I may have missed this, but
Yeah.
all your recipients, your clients, we call them, are in the New York area now, and so do you
Yeah.
or someone on your board go and take them?
For now, it's been Dolce Vita's been helping us, but we just got a transportation and storage sponsor, so that's now taken care of, thankfully, with a great company.
That'd be a fun job to get to go take those items to the.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so, but yeah, it's volunteers, that help distribute the clothing, and, we set it up. We have a designer who decorates the hospital room to make it look like a fun little store. So it kind of creates a fun, very creative, exciting experience for them where it can take their minds off of, the disease just for a second, So.
Do you have, if it were a for-profit business you call a competitor, do you have others that are in a similar mission?
I haven't found any. Surprisingly, no.
That is amazing.
Yeah, which is so weird. It seems like, that's what I was surprised about. The Look Good, Feel Better program, but that's more hair care and cosmetics, so nothing with clothing. So, the hope is just to keep growing and hopefully get somebody like Tim Gunn on board or Diane von Furstenberg on board. So we're working on that, and get probably somebody from Guilt Group on the board, just since we want to turn it into an online model eventually. So it'd be great to have them. So small steps, but it's growing really fast. So
Yeah.
that was fantastic. Exciting.
What designers did you say are on board now?
So far, Candela. We believe Steve Madden now, because of Dolce Vita, will be on board. Target, I'm talking with. Macy's is interested. A brand called Barbour. R13, which is a jean brand. We want to get somebody like Victoria's Secret on board, just for something like robes, slippers would be great, pajamas. So,
You
so
said
that's,
Ann Taylor, right?
I'm trying to get them on board. I really want to get them on board, just because they are the first donation. So, Gap Inc. I want to get to eventually. They've been showing a lot of support on social media, at least. So hopefully that will lead to a meeting. Now that we have storage space, which is great. Huh?
I think I can help you with that too.
Great.
Yeah.
I'd appreciate that. That'd really be a big gift. So.
It's one of their models.
For the fall catalog. But yeah, now the doors are just open because now we have storage space. So it's like, thank goodness, we have a place to put the clothing, because at first it was in my apartment, my co-founder's apartment, and we're like clothing dealers carrying on like $1,000 worth of clothing. So yes.
Now, are a majority of the clothes that you look for in smaller sizes because they've lost weight, or in Sarah's case because it's, they've gained weight?
Yeah.
Or
we need the first distribution event was such a good learning experience because we had patients of all ages and all body types, and everybody was able to find something, which is great. And the majority of clothing was all from Dolce Vita and Candela. So yeah, we need extremely small sizes, and we definitely need large sizes. So somebody like Lane Bryant, for example, would be wonderful.
Yeah.
And I think the term I had always said, like in the original pitch deck, was just like comfortable yet stylish.
Right.
So of course we want to accept like t-shirts, but we don't want it to be just like, a t-shirt that nobody wants.
Right.
We don't want that kind of clothing, because we really want it to be a gift.
Right.
So yeah, all sizes for sure. But yeah, I have seen like we do need definitely very large sizes and very small for sure. So sorry, my presentation is longer. Do you have any questions? No?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
I just wanted to add a few things. As I was listening to this, I was just very struck by how this vision came to her, and it came to her out of great stress and great struggle, and hurt. And it reminded me of when I was sick. I was at my house one Saturday morning, and I'm thinking that people are walking around outside from my house. And this is when I was in the throes of the worst of my cancer, and I had lost all my hair. And I was laying there, and I didn't know if I was dreaming or not, but I kept seeing these shadows go by my windows. I was thinking, what is that? So finally, I got awake enough to kind of go to the window and look out through my shades in the window. And there's all these people walking around in my house. And I'm hearing all this pounding, bump, 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 bump. And I'm thinking, what's going on out there? And then I start recognizing people. And they're some of my closest friends. So I get dressed, and I go outside, and there's over 40 people at my house. And they're replacing windows that had been broken and putting up siding. They're painting the eaves in my house. They're planting fruit trees that I've had for 6 months and haven't put them in the ground. They're doing all this work around my house. And it just struck me. And I just began to weep. And I had to go back into the house. I went back in my room, closed the door, and just almost got under my covers and just wept because I was thinking, I'm not worthy of what they're doing for me. And it was like God just, and I was quiet for a second. He says, do you think for a minute this day is about you? He said, this is not about you. Because I had put it all on me. It's kind of like, oh, well, I'm not worthy of this. I didn't do good enough for this. And when God shook me up and he said, this is about me moving on those people's hearts to do a brotherly thing. And they're responding to me. Are you going to say, you want to put a stop to that because of the way you're feeling about yourself? And it was like, oh, gosh. And I'm thinking about how God moves in us in powerful ways. And how a lot of times in the midst of our struggle, we're thinking most of our lives that they're about eliminating the struggle. If I can just eliminate all these problems and these struggles, and yet they're the things that bring us to our knees and to life through the Spirit begins to move in us. To do things like this. When we surrender, we have the power and the assets of God at our fingertips. All of a sudden, things that we would never think about being able to happen begin to open up. 40 people at my house getting all this work done. That's been 25 years at my house not getting done. We have this God And my daughter had to teach me this. She sent me a text the other day, and she said, I've been reading this book. And she said, the gist of the book is this, Dad. I think what you've been teaching me all these years is a little off. It was kind of, uh-oh. My daughter has finally grown up. She's figured me out. But this is what she said. She said in this book, it proposes the possibility that what we do in this life is not so much what he is interested in, is that what he's really interested in is this change in us. And all these things around us help to bring us to this point to where this change begins to take place in us, in here, and eventually in here. And because of this change, look what begins to happen. Incredible things begin to happen. Well, I was struck by that, and I wept again. It seems like the older I get, the more I'm struck by things. And I had to call her and say, here I am now, your dad, and now you're teaching me. And that's another good thing to change in me. God is about bringing about change in us, just like this. In Barbara Fry's funeral the other day, I was sitting there and I was thinking what an incredible woman this woman is. And when Patrick got up and started talking about her, it was just, and then he started talking about the scripture that she had chosen for her funeral. She had chosen that. Does anybody remember what it was?
John.
1 John. That the Word became flesh. And all of a sudden I was sitting there and I was thinking, here's Barbara looking down, going, this is not about me. It's about her God. It's about Jesus. It's about Jesus. Even in her funeral, in her death, she was pointing to Jesus. And I can't tell you, there was 2 or 3 people that came up to me and went, I just wonder if when my funeral comes, people are going to say that about me. That my life pointed to Jesus. Not about my acts. Not about the things that I'm able to do or have been able to do for one reason or the other. But that ultimately, I'm saying God with my life. It's about Jesus. It's about God. It's about God on the move in our lives. Wow. Thank you for that movie.
I think another important lesson for all the young people here is that she is an inspiration for you guys to help others. And I would really like to go around and know what their inspiration is. Whether it's, war vets or animals or, cancer or anything. I'd like them to tell us what their inspiration is. Is that something that we could do?
Sure.
Emma, why don't we start with you?
Can you not start with me?
Yeah. Well, Emma and I volunteer with the Animal Defense League, and we foster
5 kittens.
animals. We have 5 kittens right now that we're fostering, and so I think that's